Hello and good morning to everyone. Karibuni sana for this webinar. I hope you're able to hear me.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you so much for confirming that. Karibuni sana for this webinar, where we'll be discussing the topic of this demystifying leadership. I know when we talk about leadership, there are all these questions that normally crosses our minds. Who is a leader? What makes a leader? Are leaders born or are they made? All these questions, we are able to at least be able to tackle it today. To help us through this particular conversation is my friend, Rosemary Maina. Rosemary is a passionate coach, an authoritative speaker, and a dynamic trainer with experience running over 10 years in the financial sector, where she has held various leadership positions. Rosemary has great experience working with teams in small, medium enterprises, corporates, governments, and non-government organizations. She's well grounded in self-leadership skills, team leadership skills, and corporate wellness. Rosemary possesses a sound knowledge, working knowledge, and varied training techniques, and demonstrates strong leadership acumen. Rosemary holds an MBA in organizational leadership from Strathmore University and is also a certified coach by the American Union of NFL. So today we hope to be able to tackle all these questions of like who is a leader, contentious issues around leadership, exemplary leadership practices, and leadership development program. I'll be your host today. My name is Purity Wanjiro. I'm the director for Acurex Leadership and Management Consultants Limited. We are a HR consulting firm based here in Nairobi. We do a lot of things, such as the training we are about to do today. We also do coaching, mentorship, team building. It's almost the team building season since we are coming to the end of the year. Recruitment, among other things. I believe I'll talk more about our company at the end of this session. But now, without much further ado, I welcome you, Rosemary, to take us over this topic of demystifying leadership. Karibu sana, Rosemary.
Thank you very much, Purity, and thank you for having me. I'm glad to be in the house today. From your facial expression, I can guess you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm glad to be hosted by Acurex today. I think I would go back into the many things that you have said. So I'm looking forward to demystifying this concept of leadership, a concept that I am very, very passionate about. The reason I'm passionate about it is because I feel like we have a lot of issues, like you're talking about contentious issues that need to be cleared up. And I also feel because it's also a company that deals with leadership and management, I feel like we have mixed the two quite a bit. So for the longest time, schools have prepared us to be managers, but they have not really prepared us to be leaders. So most of us understand management pretty well. They know you're supposed to control, you're supposed to direct, you're supposed to allocate resources, but they probably miss the aspect of leadership. So that's why I'm very passionate about demystifying leadership. And the word demystify is very simple. It simply says that we want to look at, we just want to simplify the matter. We want to figure out what is the easiest way around breaking down this topic, just breaking it down to the concepts that we can easily understand and take it away from the many concepts that have been written in the many books that we have probably come across in the past. So that's the word for today. We are trying to demystify, to break it down to simple things that we can all be in a position to understand and be able to get it from wherever that we sit. So based on that, I'm sharing my screen as we go. Somebody give me a signal that they can see my screen clearly so that I know we are on the same page. Somebody give me a signal either on the chat or by hand. Beth Commander, you are up somewhere near me. Show me a hand or something. Tell me you can see my screen clearly.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see you clearly.
Thank you very much. At least I know. I also wanted to make sure that there's somebody behind that name. With online training, you could be talking to yourself on this end. So when you talk about demystifying leadership, what bothers me most exactly is because most of the time people will keep saying that our leaders are not doing what we expect them to do. My senator, I don't even know his name. My governor, I don't know what he does. My manager in the office is so incompetent. Our leaders are not doing what they're expected to do. But why it bothers me so much is because that word is totally misused in that statement. Having a title has nothing to do with you being a leader. So the moment you're given a position, that position comes with a title. When you become a boss, you are given a title. You're an assistant manager, you are a team leader, you are a HOD, you are a GM, you are a CEO, you have a title. When you go into political space, you are a governor, you are a senator, you are a chief in church or in a mosque. Everybody has a title. So in essence, what I'm trying to say here is just because you have a title does not automatically make you a leader. And that is the one thing I want us to demystify. That's the one thing I want us to clear our head as I start off this. That just because you have a position does not make you a leader. So if you're in this forum today and you're thinking, I'm a manager, that's why I'm here, I'm a leader. Not necessarily. Being a boss does not necessarily make you a leader. Having a title does not necessarily make you a leader. You choose consciously to become a leader because leadership is something that you have to learn. It's not handed over to you. You can be handed over a position, but you cannot be handed over leadership. You have to learn to become a leader. So in that case, after I have demystified that a position does not make you a leader, then how do you become a leader? And that's why in this forum, we are talking about demystifying it, breaking it down to the things that should be the real things, the things that we should understand. So very well put by the legend in leadership, John Maxwell, that leadership is influence. That's why I'm insisting that leadership has nothing to do with a position. Leadership is not a position. It's about the people that are following you. And these people that are following you do not have to necessarily be reporting to you. They could just be people who admire you from a distance. But because you have something to offer, because you influence them in one way or the other, it means that you're practicing leadership. So point number one, leadership is not a position. Leadership is influence. If you have influence, then you're practicing leadership. And the next, John Quincy, broke it down again. If leadership is influence, then what makes you a leader? And in that case, we normally say, if your actions inspire others to dream more, if your actions inspire people to learn more, if your actions inspire people to do more and become more, then you are a leader. In short, you do not need a position to do all these things. You just need to be at a position where, or to be in a place where people look at you, look at the way you do things, and when they look at you, they are inspired. They want to do more, they want to learn more, they want to become more, they feel like they want to become better human beings, so to speak. If people look at you, look at the things that you do, and they want to become better human beings, then it means you are a leader in that case. And that is what brought again down the concept of the boss has a title, but the leader has the people. Because when you're a boss, you have been given a title. You have a manager's title, you have a GM's title, you have a senator's title, you have a chief's title, you have a priest or a pastor, or whatever other title that you have, or even a parent, because when you're a mother or a father, you have people who look up to you. And so you have a position, you are a boss in some sense. But until you choose to become a leader, you only have a title. And when you have a title, then you don't have the people. But the moment you're given a title and you choose to become a leader, then you have both. You have the title and you have the people. So what you're trying to do in this era and in this century is try to make people merge the two. That if you have been given a title, then make the effort to get the people by becoming a leader. And even if you do not have the title, then consciously decide to become a leader by practicing leadership. So in this case, what that means is that there are many areas you can practice leadership. It's not just a work issue, because many a times, again, we just look at it from a work perspective or a political space or just another bigger forum. But you have to realize that it is much more than that. It is a lot more that you can do. So always look at it from all angles. At work, obviously, I think that's pretty simple. All of us are trying to get the next promotion, the next title, the next thing. So yeah, we know we are chasing leadership in that space. But most of the time, we are just chasing a position. The moment you get that position, choose to consciously become a leader. At family level, you can become a leader, whether you are a sibling or a parent, wherever you are. You can do things that inspire people. You can do things that make people want to become better and grow and become better human beings. So you can become a leader even in a family space. In the community space, the community in this case, looking at the political space, the community from a religious perspective, or the community around you, wherever you stay, you can look at it from that perspective as well. So again, at community level, you can either have a title or have no title, but you can choose to be a leader based on how you do things. from a talent perspective. Whatever talent that you have, whatever space that you want to step out and be seen because you are gifted in that space, from athletics to drawing to baking to photography, that other space that you could be in that people don't consider it as so much of work, then you can actually take up that space and become a leader in that space, because how you do it can actually inspire people to become better, to dream more, to learn more, and to do more. It means in that case, you can actually be a leader in all those spaces. So in short, what I'm trying to say is you do not need a title to be a leader. You do not need a specific position to be a leader. You do not need to be in a specific space like a work environment or a political space to be a leader. You can actually inspire people in the smallest of things that you do. People can look at you in the flat that you live in and actually decide we need to do better, because the way this person cleans that compound, the way this person takes care of the garbage, the way this person takes care of the children and the community around them, they actually inspire us to become better people, and automatically that makes you a leader. So in short, you do not need big things to become a leader. You can actually choose to become a leader in that space. So let's get down to the real issues that people are always asking about. And the common ones always is, are leaders born or made? Because most people feel like I was not born with these specific things that I'm supposed to have for me to step up as a leader. So there is always that at the back of people's mind. Like I need to probably have been born a certain way. We shall get down to that and realize, is it really true? Is it true that you have to be born a certain way? Is it an issue of gender? The question I get most of the time is, if I am a lady, does it mean I have to do things differently? Does it mean I have to work harder? Does it mean I have to pull a few strings differently from the way men pull their strings for me to be able to fit into that space? So is it a gender issue? And again, is it an issue of personality? People will always ask me, I'm an introvert, so can I actually be all out there and lead in anything? I'm an introvert, can I actually be a leader? Can I actually be in that space? Or is it an issue of age? Like we always say in this country, the youth are going to lead tomorrow when they become older. So as it is right now, they feel like they're not leading. But are these really the issues? Are these really the issues, or is leadership generally not understood? And I think when you look at them into details, you realize the problem we have is not these issues. The problem we have is that leadership is totally misunderstood, because most of us are looking at a pedestal where we can be placed, where everybody can look up to us, and then that makes them feel like the real leaders because they're in that pedestal. So you do not have actually to be in a pedestal somewhere, but just to convince you that these are not the real issues. That's why I call them contentious. They're contentious because we can throw a few words against each other. We can argue about it a whole day over coffee, and I'll still feel like somebody is justified by whichever side they look at. So let me get into the details of a leadership journey from probably the 19th century to the 21st century. Then in that case, you're going to have an idea of what has changed over time, what things have we discovered about leadership, and what can convincingly tell us that actually these are not the real issues. The real issue is we have not understood leadership, and we have sat back and waited for things to happen instead of making them happen. As I continue, remember, you can drop your questions at the chat box. I will be glad to pick your questions at the top of the hour, and I'm sure Purity is looking at them and putting them together. So if I say something and you'd want more details as we continue, drop it at the chat box so that you don't forget. If there is a question you logged in with at the top of your mind, drop it at the chat box. We will be picking questions with Purity at the top of the hour. So I get down to the contentious issues, and we're going to look at that by first looking at the journey of leadership. And the journey of leadership actually starts with the first issue, which is, are leaders born or are leaders made? The reason we have that issue is because in the 1840s, or what we would probably call the 19th century, we had the theory we used to call the great man theory. This theory used to tell people that leaders are actually born and not made. Of course, when a theory comes into play, it means over the years we get to carry that notion. Over the years, we are thinking there's something behind it that we should believe in. And maybe they had a thing about it. So in short, you're trying to say is, by then what you are looking at is that these people who become leaders are born a certain way. They are born with a certain level of intelligence. They are born with a certain level of confidence. They are born with a certain level of sociability, or just being able to get along with people. And they're born with a certain level of charisma. As it is today, we cannot totally say this is not true. But there are things we can try to critique and figure out, is it totally true? Is it wholesome true? or is it bits of truth and bits of it not being true? And to help me demonstrate that, I picked two men from the 19th century who actually had this kind of things. They had charisma, they had confidence, they had intelligence, and they were quite sociable. And then see how they brought out the leadership in them. As I said, just try to think if you know these two men. Who are they if you are to think about it? My first man was an Indian lawyer. He was an anti-colonial nationalist. He led nationwide campaigns against poverty, against women's rights, against ethnic peace, and eventually led to self-rule. And he successfully campaigned for India's independence from the British rule. If you are a fan of history, you could probably be trying to think, who could that be? And if you have an idea who that person could be, feel free to drop it at the chat box, and maybe you could challenge our history. I know some people did social studies, others did geography, history, whatever that is that you did, you can try to think at the back of your mind, who do you think that person is? This Indian guy who led a nationwide campaign and brought so much change by campaigning peacefully until he got India to get independence from the British rule. Thank you so much, Benjamin Gitau. Benjamin says that is Mahatma Gandhi. Very, very correct. So I got to my second guy. My second guy was a German politician and leader. He initiated World War II by invading Poland. What happened after he invaded Poland is that Britain and France declared war on Germany. His leadership and his movement was responsible for 6 million Jews genocide, 19.3 million civilians and war prisoners died, 28.7 million soldiers and civilians died. He actually has the deadliest conflict in history. He is my second guy. Crispina's Othiambo says Adolf Hitler. Very, very true. I have very learned people here, and Edwin and Jerome. Yeah, thank you very much. You got it. That second guy is Adolf Hitler. What you realize about these two men actually is that they have the many things we considered here under the great man theory. These guys were intelligent, they were super confident, they had charisma, and they were quite sociable. But they brought out leadership in two very different aspects. It came out totally different. One brought so much peace and so much independence, and we have lived to treasure it. The other one was totally morally flawed. So in short, what you're saying is one led people into the dark corners. We say that the dark charisma of Adolf Hitler led millions into the abyss, into a deep problem, and into millions of people who died, and to the deadliest conflict in human history. Despite the fact that this guy was charismatic, he was intelligent, he had everything a leader was supposed to have as far as the great man theory is concerned. But on the other side, we also had Mahatma Gandhi, who said in his own words, in a gentle way, you can actually shake the world. So in short, what you're trying to say is that by critiquing the first item, whether our leaders are born or leaders are made, we realize there's a problem if you are just born. You can actually use those whatever you have been born with, whatever these traits you have been born with, and end up being a leader who is totally morally flawed. So in short, in my own words, I would have never considered Hitler a leader. I would have just considered him anything else, a politician. If I was to write it down, I would say a German politician, not a German leader. Because as much as he had influence that was morally flawed. He had influence that ended up with so much negativity that it did not warrant to become a leader. And that is what makes us question the fact that leaders are just born. You can actually be born with certain traits, but end up using them so wrong that we start questioning, are there other things that you need? Apart from those traits that you're actually born with, are there other things that you need for you to become a leader? And that is the question that made people start thinking beyond the great man theory. For the scholars, and I have, from the look of things, I can tell I have enough scholars in the house. So after that, we came up with many other theories. But for purposes of time, allow me to pick two more only. So the second one I'll pick is the trait theory. So the trait theory tried to explain that maybe, just maybe, there are specific traits, apart from what you are born with, there's something else. There's something else that you acquire along the way. They probably thought the fact that Mahatma Gandhi was a better leader, so to speak, compared with Adolf Hitler, maybe there's something else that he had inherited along the way. So they started thinking, are there many other traits? Is there something that you are you are inherited with, like your height, for example, like your IQ, for example, or there are other things that you acquire along the way, that you like your communication fluency, like your ability to interact with people, your extraversion, for example. Are there other things that actually come into play? So that we are now saying it is not just what you're born with, it is a mixture of both. It is a mixture of what you're born with and what you acquire along the way. So in that case, what you're trying to say, thank you, Florence, for answering the question. So what you're trying to say is, was there something more than what you're born with? And they look at it that way, between the leaders and the followers. What do leaders have that followers do not have? So they listed all those traits, the acquired ones and the inherited ones. And eventually what came around is, there was not much difference. There was not actually much difference in terms of traits between people who are leaders and people who are following them. In short, between leaders and followers, there are people who are tall. In both cases, there are people who are very intellectual. In both cases, there are people who are extroverted. In both cases, there are people who are very good communicators. And all those other traits that they had ever thought about, charisma and all those other things. There are people who are actually very good followers, and they also have all these traits. There are people who are very good leaders or not good leaders, and they have a bit of these traits. So in essence, they could not sit back and say that people become leaders because of these specific traits, that you must have these sets of 10 specific traits for you to become a leader. And the other thing that they thought about is, maybe it's because these traits are just describing a behavior. They're just telling us you should be fluent or you should be extroverted, but it is not explaining that behavior into details. How do you put that behavior into practice for you to become a leader? And that is the gap the 21st century is trying to fill in. That is the gap the 21st century is trying to look at and ask themselves, all these things we are talking about, the traits that you're born with or you have inherited along the way, could it be that the difference is how that behavior can be explained and put into practice? So to bypass all those other theories for purposes of this forum, I bring you down to the 21st century. So some two guys called Cousins and Posner, for purposes of the scholars again, they did research over around 30 years. And they decided, instead of just trying to guess about traits, can we go down to people, the specific people like the Mahatma Gandhis, and people in the offices, people in the community, people in homes who seem to look like good leaders. And how do we determine that they are good leaders? What you're trying to say is that these people have led ordinary people, and these ordinary people have actually done extraordinary things. That somebody like Mahatma Gandhi picked peasants, he picked farmers, he picked people who were just normal people. But eventually that movement ended up bringing up very great extraordinary things. And that is what these people did. And after so much research, they tried to now bring down to what do these people do, and summarized it into 5 behaviors or 5 practices that these people do. So in the 21st century, these are the 5 behaviors that we are considering as effective or exemplary, very good leadership practices. And what we are saying is, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your personality, irrespective of whether you are born with it or born without it, there are behaviors that you can actually learn that can propel you to become a leader. And remember, in this case, if you have a position, you are trying to amend the two so that you become a leader in that position. If you do not have a position, you are intentionally deciding to become a leader in that sense. So what are these 5 behaviors? Like I have portrayed them pretty clearly there. The first one is that you need to model the way. What do I mean when I say that you need to model the way? What I mean is simple language. You need to lead by example. Whatever space that you are leading in, if you're in the office and you are the boss, and you want people to be coming early, it is as simple as show up early as well. It's that practical. If you're at home and you are the parent and you want your children to be taking greens, for example, you want them to be saying 3-day prayers 3 times in a day, just do exactly that. In short, lead by example. If you want to be a leader, it is as simple as that. If you have a position you've been given, then step up and lead by example. Do not expect people to do things that you actually cannot do. Do not expect people to do things that you only tell them to do if you know you cannot do them yourself. Chances are they'll eventually either not follow you, or you will have to use force, you will have to use power, or you will have to use authority for you to be able to keep them to follow you. So if you have to make people follow you, then model what you want them to do. And it is that simple. In whatever space you are in that you want to lead, in whatever space that you want to inspire people, lead by example, learn and do that which you want them to do. And that's why when you look at Mahatma Gandhi's life, and one of his quotes, he says, "My life is my message." So he never sat back and told people to go to war. He actually led everything that he wanted done. When he said people are not going to be led by sword, he intentionally made sure that people are not led by sword, and he led them by peace. So in simple language, what you're trying to say is that you have to lead by example, model the way, model what you want other people to do. You want to change the world, start by changing yourself, start by doing the things you think need to be done right. The second behavior that they picked was that you need to inspire a shared vision. If you're a leader, chances are, or the truth is, you should have a vision. When I talk about a vision, I'm not talking about probably a super huge thing like the Mahatma person ahead or what Adolf should have had. I'm looking at whatever space you're in and what is that vision you have. If you're sitting in an office space, it is what the company strategy is trying to achieve this year. It is what your department is trying to achieve this quarter. That is the vision you're looking at. If it is at home as a parent, it is what you want your family to look like in the next 5 years or in the next 2 years. If it is in your personal life, as probably in your talent space, is the person you want to become in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years. So you must have a vision. But the problem with just having a vision in your head is that you may not be able to accomplish it by yourself. You need to envision it and then enlist other people to move with you. Because if you're a leader, like you have said, you're inspiring people. It's about the people who are looking up to you, or it is about the people that you are leading. So you need to be able to have the vision first in your mind, then bring people together and sell that vision to them with a lot of enthusiasm, with a lot of energy, with a lot of good communication, with a lot of influence, until they are convinced that they buy into that vision and support you to be able to achieve that vision. My best example for this is our very own Eliud Kipchoge. When he said that no human is limited, all of us dropped our tools, dropped our limitations, whether we believed it or not. We were all up and about saying no human is limited. We were all up and about believing there's an Ineos 159. He made us buy into his vision. He made us as single individuals in our own villages, in our own towns, in every part of this world. He made us believe that actually no human is limited. Before he even started the running itself, he shared that vision with us. He repeatedly said it. He repeatedly envisioned it. And he essentially and eventually enlisted all of us. He made all of us believe in his vision. We had nothing to do with that running. We had nothing to do with humans not being limited. But because he believed in it so much and eventually sold it to us with so much passion and so much energy, we all came together as normal human beings, as individuals, as sponsors, as countries, our very own likes, like the Safaricom. We saw his face on KICC. He was all over. And the day he was running, we were all down there. Whichever part of the world you are in, you wanted to see, is he gonna hit that line by 159? So he literally sold us his vision. We were not going to gain anything by him crossing that line. But because he had got that vision so much and sold so much of it into us, we actually bought into it. And that is what a leader does. And that's what makes him a leader in that space, from my own definition of a leader. Because he sold us that vision with so much passion and so much enthusiasm. So wherever you are and you have a vision as a leader, and I say it everywhere, whether in a community, in your religion and church, in the office, politics, wherever you are, you must have that vision. You must buy it yourself, and then you must sell it to us up to a point where we get to buy it. So inspire us to buy into your vision. And that is what a leader does. The third thing that a leader does is that a leader challenges the process. You cannot be a leader if you don't challenge the normal. So every time you wake up in the morning and you want to lead in a certain space, are you in a talent space? Do you draw? Do you bake? Do you, whatever it is that you do? Are you in the office? Are you at home? Are you trying to lead in your own personal capacity of the work that you do? Always ask yourself, what can I do differently? If you look at all the people who have actually stood out as leaders, there's something that they did differently. Even in our political space, the one person we remember when we say that president was better or that MP was better, is because there's something they actually questioned and they did it differently. They brought something new to that space. So always ask yourself, in whatever space you're in, what can you do differently? Experiment, take risks. Go fast. Don't be afraid to go fast. Don't always try to keep up with what everybody else has done. Be bold enough to step up, go fast, adopt things early, and learn from your mistakes, because mistakes will happen. Whether you try or you just sit back, you have to make mistakes at some point. Even if you wait for years to master a certain concept, chances are you're still going to make mistakes. Until you experience it, then you have not learned it. So you have to keep learning by your own mistakes. But you cannot lead in any space if you do not challenge the process. If you don't ask yourself every day, what can I do different? Yes, Andrew, you're saying you have to dare to be different. I think I would summarize it in Andrew's word. Dare to be different, because you cannot lead by being the same. You cannot lead by conforming. You cannot lead by doing it what everybody else is doing in your office, what everybody else is doing in your community, what everybody else is doing in your profession. You have to try and be different. Do something totally out of the normal, and be bold enough to take risks. Because the leaders who have stood the test of time, the leaders we read in history up to date, they are people who actually challenged the process. And the fourth thing that these people were seen to do is do something we say that they enable other people to act. The biggest mistake you can ever do is to achieve something on your own and then die with it. Because you need to build other people. Again, whether it is in the office, if you're a team leader, are you mentoring somebody else to become what you are? If you're in a church or in another community and there's something you do, are you enabling somebody else to become what you do? If I am here speaking, am I helping somebody else to be able to teach leadership, for example? If you are talented in a certain space, like I said, you take very nice photos, you do very nice drawings, you play very nice music, are you mentoring other people? Are you building leaders? Because you will only become a leader if you enable somebody else to do what you do. I always say, if you're a manager somewhere or you're a leader somewhere, and one day you leave that place and take a holiday for 1 week and nothing can run, they have to keep calling you, then you are not a leader. You still just have a position. You are only a leader the day you know you can step back and work will still get done. Work will still get done because you have built a team, you have involved others in the way you do things, you have involved them in making decisions, you have collaborated with them to do different things, and so they can actually be able to work on their own. Because like this guy again said, our very own Eliud, I have a lot of respect for sports people because of the determination and the energy they have to put in and the commitment. He said 100% of me is nothing compared to 1% of the whole team. That's teamwork, and that's what I value. In short, if he was to be waking up in the morning and running around on his own, it is not going to make much sense. It is not even going to be as motivating. But because he has a team he runs with, this team is not the one that jumps up to take the gold medal, but it is that team that adds value. It is that team that gives him teamwork. It is that team that keeps him going. So without a team around you, without other people that you're actually building, without people that you're involving, then you are actually not yet become a leader. You become a leader the day you have developed another leader. Until that time, you are still very just trying. Thank you, Crispinas. Yes, you're saying it's profound. Empowering and transforming others is the way to go. Empowering and transforming others is the way to go. So you have to empower others, you have to build others, you have to make others, and you don't need to be at the top for you to pull somebody else down. You just need to be one step ahead. If you have learned one step, made your mistake and learned, then do not let the person behind you come and make the same mistake. Teach them something, write about it, talk about it, because most people who actually enable us and empower us do not necessarily have to come to our face. Sometimes it's because they put up a video somewhere, they wrote a book, they wrote an article, they shared their story. So whatever you can do it and build somebody else. That also makes you a leader in that space. And the fifth thing that people do is that they encourage the heart. It is that they encourage the heart. The last thing you want to do is to work with somebody or work around somebody who never recognizes your contribution, who never celebrates victories. And this guy called Thomas once said that we need leadership that is tough enough to demand a great deal from everyone, and leadership that is tender enough to encourage the heart. So after you have put your foot on the ground, you have a vision, you have inspired that vision, you have modeled the way, and you have brought people together to work with you, and they have actually achieved. They have helped you become that big person. Remember to go back and tell them thank you. Remember to go back and tell them that was a job well done. Wherever you are, again, whether in the office or at home or in a community, wherever space you are leading in, when people have actually followed you and heeded to your vision and have actually actualized that vision or that goal, always remember to go back and celebrate their victories. Something important, personalized recognition. If one person did actually something really good, do not go back and say, we all did well. Look at them in the face and say, Edwin, you are the one who took this goal and you're the one who did 1, 2, 3. Thank you for that. Sometimes you don't need to buy people huge gifts. All they need is to tell them, thank you. And when after that, then celebrate together. Don't again, after you have personalized recognition, let everybody in that team celebrate together. Even if they all did not contribute, if they're part of the team, let them celebrate. But remember, when you are recognizing in a personalized way for the people who actually made it happen. But when it brings in the celebration, let your whole department, let your whole organization, let your whole team, let your whole church, let the whole community celebrate together because you have achieved. So those are the 5 things that were seen to be what we call exemplary leadership practices. Things that ordinary people do that can make actually ordinary people do very extraordinary things. Remember, they are doing these things without force, without power, and without being pushed, like the flawed managers or the flawed bosses would do, to push people through power and through all the negative aspects. So if you want people to achieve extraordinary things in an extraordinary way, you're saying first, model the way, inspire a shared vision, have a vision and let them see it is where they're going, and be able to sell it to them in a way that they can buy it, challenge the process, enable others to act, build people together, and encourage the heart by recognizing their contributions. So having said that, having looked at the 5 things that you actually need to do to become a leader, and remember, you are mixing this with whatever position you have for you to become both that boss or that manager or that title plus becoming a leader. And in short, we are saying that then when you look at it from that perspective, then those things are actually not contentious. From my perspective, those things are not contentious. They're not contentious because leadership is behaviors and practices that can be learned. Some people will say, because I'm an extrovert, then I'm very good at encouraging the heart. I remember to encourage other people. Maybe because I'm an extrovert, I can enable other people to act. Or maybe because I'm an introvert, that means I'm creative, I challenge the process. So in essence, eventually you realize some people have a few things and there are other things that you don't have. This other person will have this thing and not have this other thing. So eventually all those contentious issue boils down to there are things you have to learn. Eventually, there are things you have to learn. So behaviors and practices that can be learned. And remember, hard work beats talent. You might look at yourself in terms of what you are born with, in terms of your personality, in terms of your gender, and realize you have most of these things. But realize if you just sit back and do nothing about it, the person who was born with very little might actually work very hard and beat you, because hard work actually beats talent. I would confidently say that maybe Kipchoge is not the fastest guy, is not the most resilient guy as far as that kind of athletic is concerned. But because he has put in the work, he has put in the hard work, he has probably beaten somebody with a talent that is seated somewhere in a village somewhere. Like they always say again, maybe the Miss World is not the most beautiful woman in the world. The most beautiful woman in the world is probably seated somewhere at home as somebody's wife or just running around her own business. But the other one stepped up, did the hard work, and beat the person who had the talent. And they stepped up and they were recognized for that. So whatever it is that you do, always remember, it is hard work that beats talent. It is the behaviors and the practices that you will learn and keep polishing that will make you a better leader, and not necessarily the things you are born with or the things that you are not born with. So how do you get there? How do you become that person? First things first, self-awareness. Self-awareness is key. As much as you're saying it is not what you're born with or it is not what you have to start from somewhere. You have to start by what you know or don't know. The table I have right there is something called in psychology, something that we use in self-awareness assessment in psychology. We call it the Johari window. It has those 4 areas. The one on my top left, yes, top left, you're looking at the things that are known by others and things that are known by you. When it says by me, it means by you. So there are things that you know about yourself and there are things other people know about you. That's an open area. There's nothing to hide around there. So most likely there are things you know around me. There are things you know about you, and there are things that people know about you. That's an open area. So there are weaknesses you know, and there are strengths that you know about yourself. And it's good to be genuine about them. Sometimes you want to sugarcoat and try to look all good, but unless you acknowledge the things you're actually not good at, You might not know what is holding you back. So be genuine about it. What are things that you know? What are the things people tell you that you're good at and you're not good at? Do they say you are creative, but you don't get along with people? That's good feedback. And that's a place to start from. Then there's the hidden area. These are things unknown by others, but there are things you know about you. There are actually things you know you are good at, but other people don't know because you have never shown them. They have never known that you can actually draw. They have never known you can actually communicate well. They have never known that you're good at analyzing certain things because you have actually never told them. So that's a hidden area, but you know about it. So again, something very important, do that self-disclosure about yourself. What are these things you know about yourself that others don't know? And how does that fit in you to becoming the leader in the space that you want to become in? Then to the top right, I have the blind area. There are things are known by you, but they are known by others. Actually, the easiest way to get the other step in self-awareness is getting feedback from people. And by this, you need people who are, we call them loving critics. People who will not just tell you things to bring you down, and also people who don't love you too much that they'll never tell you something is wrong. So you need people who are loving critics. They're going to criticize you or to critique you, but from a loving perspective, because they're going to tell you the truth. So there are things you don't know about yourself that other people know about you. They're going to look at you and tell you the way you behave in public is a problem. The way you dress does not match the person you want to become. You need to polish your communication. You need to polish how you get along with people. Take that feedback and work on it. And then the next thing is the unknown area, things that are unknown by you and unknown by others. What this means is that you need to experiment, try new things, try new roles, try new networks, try new passions until you get to know so much more about yourself. So do not get satisfied. So the first thing to developing your leadership is self-awareness. It is knowing your strengths, it is knowing your weaknesses, it is knowing your personality, it is knowing your natural way of doing things. And then asking yourself, based on where I want to go, what are the things that I need to work on? What are the things that I need to improve for me to become a leader in that space? That is very, very important. Self-awareness is key. And the next thing that you need to, the next 4 items, because I will be closing in a few minutes, after you have known yourself, then you need to remember a few things. Mentors are very, very important. Mentors are very, very important. So you have to always ask yourself, do I have somebody that I look up to? Look out for desirable behaviors. Look out for desirable behaviors in people around you. And sometimes, like I said, these days people are very busy. So you might not get a chance for you to be able to go to somebody and get to have a cup of tea with them, get them to meet you every week or every 2 weeks. If you do not have that privilege, then you could actually do what I call silent mentorship. When you look at people, you always ask yourself, if from the office, for example, is there something you admire about somebody you work with? Again, mentors don't have to come out of the other world. It could be somebody you sit with in the office who is very good in a certain area. It could be your boss who does things in a way that you admire. It could be somebody totally out there who has written books, done videos, have written their biographies, things that you can actually learn from those people. So the beauty of having a mentor is that they help you cut the long journey by almost a half or even more, because they help you avoid mistakes that they made over a whole period of 10 years. Before they realize it is good to know how to network with people, before they realize it's good to be a good communicator, before they realize that they needed to polish a certain skill, they're going to bring it down to you early enough. And then you start learning from them as early as possible. So look out for people who have behaviors that you desire and try to get mentorship from them, whether physically or virtually. You can be able to have that. Number 3, have a growth mindset. Leaders are learners. You cannot lead in any space unless you are continuously improving yourself. That is why Kipchoge will still be the marathon person leading in the marathon world, but he decides, I still need to push. Still need to push and do this in less than 2 hours. So keep pushing yourself. Every month, every other quarter, ask yourself, what am I achieving? What am I learning in this period? So set yourself what I call a development plan. From where you're seated right now, do you want to become the next manager? Do you want to become this other next person? What do you want to become next? And how do you get there? Are there skills that you need to learn? Are there forums you need to attend? Is there an association that you need to join? Do you need to establish new networks? All those things. What is this that you need to do for you to get to the next level? And as always, like I said, feedback is key. Use feedback as an opportunity for growth. When people tell you can actually talk better, when people tell you can write better, when people tell you can do better analysis, take that as feedback. and go back and polish and learn and learn and learn. Always have a growth mindset. Use feedback as an opportunity for your own growth. And finally, continuous self-assessment. I always say you have to hold yourself accountable. I know there are people out there who love you enough and may want to keep you going, but if you can't hold yourself accountable, then nobody else will, because they're also busy running their own life. So the things you said you are going to do you hold yourself accountable? Do yourself a check-in. The way your boss checks with you to see how far you are, do the same with yourself. Do yourself some periodic check-ins. Once in a while, ask yourself, based on the things that I had intended to do, based on the things that I had intended to do this quarter or in 2020, then after things went wrong, what have I achieved? I had said I'll start running 3 days a week. Am I running? If I missed, what happened? I had said I'll read a book this month. Have I read it? I had said I'm going to look for a mentor in this area. How am I doing? Be very specific about the things that you need to do, and then continuously check in with yourself and see how you are doing and hold yourself accountable. If you have somebody who can actually hold you accountable, the better. It is good. I call it good peer pressure. Good peer pressure means you have a friend, you have a sister, you have a colleague, you have a brother, or you have your men's club or your girls club, people who can actually check on you and remind you, you said you have to do this month. We are checking. Make sure you go and sign yourself into that course. So they can actually push you to do it. But even as other people push you, you have to hold yourself accountable. So that's what I mean by saying that you need to develop your own leadership. You have to develop your own way of becoming the leader. How? First, by self-awareness, know your strengths and your weaknesses based on what you know, what other people know about you, and experimenting by doing new things. Get mentors, people who you can learn from, so that your journey does not become too difficult. Have a growth mindset. Always take feedback as part of growth and hold yourself accountable to learn and grow and become a better person. But most importantly, do periodic check-ins with yourself. Hold yourself accountable to achieve what you set yourself to achieve. Because you have said leadership is not just about sitting in a position. It is about you deciding, I'm going to inspire people based on everything that I do. I'm going to become such a good person in my area of profession, in my talent space, as a parent, as a boss in the office, in the community. I'm going to become a leader by inspiring other people to want to become like me or become better by the way I'm going to do things. And that is what leadership is all about. It is about making others better as a result of your presence, because they look at you and they want to become better. They look at you and they are inspired. They know they can actually become better. So it's very important that you make others better by just looking at you. That is what leadership is. It's making others better as a result of your presence. But more importantly, it is making sure that that impact lasts in your absence. That impact lasts in your absence. And that's why I said you are not going to inspire people to a point where they can do without you, then you're not a leader yet. As a leader, you need to step away and people stay inspired and they keep doing the way things you did. You leave your team in the office and they keep doing things very well because you inspired them. You walk away from your children or they walk away from you and they keep doing good things because they learned it from you. You walk away from a community, from a church, from a mosque, whatever it is, community you are in, and they keep doing things very well because you inspired them to become that person. That is what leadership is. It is making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that that impact lasts in your absence. Thank you very much for following. And I want to hand it back to Purity. I know we have quite a number of questions and we have around 10 minutes or so we can be able to get questions based on that. Thank you very much.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rosemary. That was a very insightful conversation that was going on there. I really liked how you engaged us on different aspects of leadership, and I believe living here will leave better leaders, if if not much more better. But thank you very much. That was very eloquent. I read to you a few questions that have come up. Just hold on. I read to you a few questions that have come up. I dropped off the call for a few minutes, so I don't see questions from 11:45 minutes upwards, but I can see the questions from 11:44. So the first question is, as a team leader, how do you handle team players who are not willing to take up the challenge.
Okay. Thank you very much. Part of being a team leader, and in this case, I want again to say that word leader is used relatively, because what it means is that you're either a supervisor or an assistant manager or a manager in that space. And that would probably bring in the other aspect of management and not purely leadership. And that's why I say the two go together. You can't do leadership alone. You need to do management as well. Only that this session was mostly focusing on leadership. So in this case, my question would be, why? You first need to do what you call the why. Why are they not willing to take up leadership? Because sometimes we assume just because I'm qualified and I'm asked for that job, I'm going to take up everything. There are many other things that come with it. What is it that they are not motivated enough? Is it that they are not fit for that role? Is it that you have not sold the vision to them enough for them to feel like they have bought into it? Or are there other underlying issues that you actually need to look at? So it is not just about leadership. Here, there is also the management side of it. For me, the most important question would be the why. You need to figure out why. You probably need to have a very candid discussion with them. You need to collect feedback from the people around them and figure out, because human beings can be a bit complex. Sometimes you're in a job because you just want to pay your bills, and that's it. Because if I can pay my bills, I will go home. I'm in it because I'm also waiting to step out and go to do other things. So there are many things around it. And until you know the why, then you're going to waste a lot of energy and time around it. So you need to know the why, then the why is going to advise your next step. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rosemary, for that. Another question, as leaders, how do you interpret the team if they never get feedback to what you communicate to them about? They are always silent and so slow to respond unless you inbox or single them out. So how do you get response from these leaders?
So the person is not getting feedback from the team, but I like what he says is that, or what she says is Phyllis, what she says is that when I single them out, I'm able to get feedback. Again, you need to know your people. If you're a leader, you have to know every person in all the details. What are their exact personalities? What motivates them? What kind of people are they? In what space are they able to talk about? I'll give you an example. For example, if most of your team leaders are introverts will not speak out in a crowd. And it's good you have realized there are places where when you single them out, they give you feedback. So if that is the space they are able to give you feedback and they give you genuine feedback, then be able to engage them in that space where you're able to single them out or inbox them separately. So you need to know as a leader, like I said, leaders are learners. You have to always be ahead of your people. You have to know what kind of people am I dealing with? How well do they communicate? How well can I get them feedback? What motivates them? What keeps them grounded? You have to do that research for yourself and learn so much about them until you can almost read them from a distance. So until you do that, you are still not leading them. You are still just managing them. So you can only lead people if you totally understand them and know how their thought process works. So just get to know, my thought here is most of them are introverts, and introverts will not respond in a crowd. Even when they respond on email, they are not going to copy people. So that's the kind of people you're dealing with. Learn to engage them from that perspective. So learn your people individually, learn how they work and how they communicate, and see how to engage them from that perspective.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. The next question okay, that's not really a question. Could you share the presentations so we can train others? Yes, we can be able to share with that. I hope you're able to sign up for the webinar today so that you can directly share it to your email. If not, please drop your email address and we will share the presentation after this. So the final question, hi Purity and Rosemary, I'm an operations supervisor at our retail outlet and have always tried to engage some of my team members in learning some systems. However, they seem reluctant. How can one handle this issue? Because the excuse is that they are always busy. This one we get a lot.
Yes, people are always busy. You know, you can always be busy when you want to be busy. So being busy is relative again, but I think there's an aspect of what we call change management. Human beings love their comfort space. People don't like change things. You come today and tell me to shift from where I live, I will start doing, who is taking all this energy? So if they're used to doing a specific system, they have used it over the years and they're thinking it works, so why are you changing it? So the mistake could have been that they were not prepared for this change. Change management is a big deal in leadership or in management. You always have to prepare people for change. How, in simple languages, first they need to understand why do we need the change. So you can't just bring a system. First they are thinking, you're bringing this system, how is it benefiting us? maybe it's you who ate money, like it happens in, maybe you ate money and you're just bringing as a new system. What we have is working. So they're going to give you excuses just to not deal with it. So if it was not handled well from the beginning, you're going to have a problem. Any change has to involve everybody that will be affected by that change. Doesn't matter how small that person is. Even if it's going to affect the guard or the cleaner, they have to be involved from the beginning before that change is initiated. You need to tell them these are the challenges we are having in this system. The system we are trying to bring in is going to bring in this change, and this is how it is going to affect you, so that they feel involved and they bring their decisions and their contributions early enough. If you don't involve a human being in decision making, even at home with your own children, they're going to rebel. So any change has to involve the people. If that was not done in the beginning, right now you have a lot of selling to do. You have a lot of selling to do in terms of how do you make them feel that this change is for their own benefit and not just the company or the organization benefit. If they can't see the benefit, they're going to give you a big headache. But your lesson now is, in future, any change has to involve all the people from the beginning.
All right, thank you. I read one more question to you. How can you challenge the process in an organization setup without being the villain or the rebel against the organization culture?
Okay, well, that's a tough one, because culture is normally very toughly embedded in people. But you can always, I say, you can always look for an avenue, especially if you're the top person, you are in a better space, because you can easily bring it as a big thing that will affect the future of the organization, and you're able to bring in that change. If you're not the top person, then you might need to look around for people who I would call helpers, people who I would call sponsors within the organization. Like I say, you don't want to be a villain. So is there somebody sitting in top management who could actually buy your idea? Then you could actually use that person to be able to sell that idea and see you can be able to push it. The other way around it is there any other change happening in the organization? Do you feel like people are dissatisfied with the culture you have right now? Then you could actually use that space of what people are not happy about by bringing in the change that you want, that is actually going to bring something different that can actually make people happy. So in this one, a lot of emotional intelligence and a bit of tactic and diplomacy. So look for a senior person that you can actually be able to work with. Relationships here will count. And also look if there's any change that is happening, then you can be able to throw in your change so that it becomes part of the process and not just an isolated thing. And like I said again, cultures can be hard to change, especially if you're not at the top. And again, we say culture change is 70% leadership, 30% the rest of the people. So if the leadership doesn't buy into it, it can be pretty tough for you. So don't kill yourself with it, but if it's important, you can find a way around it. Yeah.
All right, one more question. What is the best leadership feedback mechanism you can recommend? Is it the 360-degree feedback or a questionnaire, or which one?
Okay.
So how best are you able to get this feedback? You ask everyone, questionnaires, what do you think?
Okay, I like the fact that he's mentioned the 360, because it's a new thing. It's a new thing where you look at getting feedback from every process and from everybody in the organization. In this aspect, I'm looking at, if I want feedback for myself, then I don't have to make it so complicated. I don't need a questionnaire to ask people how I deal with them. Actually, they may not even tell you the real truth. The beauty or the best thing to go around it is, don't even look at it as formal feedback. Look at it as information you get from people. If you're very easy with people, you're going to get information from them. They can actually tell you. I call it, do lunch feedback, and don't even call it a feedback. Just call it a lunch. Just call it an evening. The things people tell you over coffee, the things people tell you over a drink, the things people tell you when you're just strolling across the road to take nyamachoma on the other side of the road, that is the real feedback. The other feedback that is done on paper is actually not the best feedback that you can get for personal purposes. For formal purposes in the office, I would go the 360 way, because sometimes, like I've said, you have a mix of people. You have people who love you too much to tell you the truth. You have people who don't like you a lot, if I may call you that way, or people who never see anything good, and they're only going to bombard you with bad information, maybe because they also want to take over your role. So it's good to get it from a 360, so that you get from everybody that you interact with, and you also get it from the smallest of processes, not just at the appraisal at the end of the year, from other small interactions that you have in between, so that you have it all around and you can be able to assess, where do I have what I'm calling the loving critics kind of feedback. Feedback that is actually good, that is firm, even if it is not what you would like to hear, then you can actually be able to work on that. But bottom line is, feedback is key, because you don't know yourself 100%. There are things people know about you that could actually help you become a better person. So look at it from a 360 for formal purposes. For personal purposes, pick it from the phone calls, the SMSs, the walks, the lunches, the coffees. the drinks. That's where you get the real feedback. That's where you get to know what people think about you. And remember, perception is reality. So if that's what they think, you need to try, even if that's not what you think it is, you need to try and portray what you think they should see, because they're actually not seeing that which you wanted them to see. Yeah. Purity, I don't know if you're still there.
Yes, I'm still there. Let's read one more question. How do you train introverts to be leaders?
Okay. I think I like that question because, like I said, personalities have been pretty much Decembered, if I could use that word. We have been broken into pieces of individuals who make us feel like we might not totally fit, but that's actually not the truth. Much of what I think introverts have is perception. It is what they were told when they were growing up. It is what they have read in books. And I'm not saying they have to try and jump out of their personality. All I'm trying to say here is that, remember, it's not about how loud you are. It is how easily you can be able to influence people. So go back to those behaviors and practices and ask yourself, which behavior am I not good at? Is it that I don't easily influence people through by speaking, for example? And how can I be able to work on that? Remember, every skill can be learned. Communication can be learned. Public speaking can be learned, irrespective of your personality. The only difference is you will have a different way of doing it, if I may say that way. You might not be the person who holds a whole huge party to make people happy, but you can actually be able to sit people in a small meeting and talk to them in a way that actually makes them feel influenced. You're actually probably also very good at leading by example, because you like getting the actions done more than the talking done. So look at first, what are your strengths? Because there's real strengths in being an introvert. Take advantage of that. Then look at the other side of you that is making you not fit in, like maybe the social interactions, and tell yourself, what can I do about it? You will not die by attending one dinner in a week. Remind yourself, I will show up in that dinner, I'll be an extrovert for 1 hour, I will greet people, I will make them know I was there, then after that I can go home and sleep. So intentionally do things that are going to get you there. But that only will work with your own self-awareness. Remember, just because you are 10 introverts does not mean you're all the same. Your strengths and your weaknesses could still differ, as much as you have some similarities. So know exactly what it is that you have yourself, and then work towards that place that you actually want to go. So it's not an issue of this is the person I was born to be. It's a person of what you want to become, then work your way there.
All right, that's very insightful. I think this is the final of the final questions. When assessing leaders on their competencies and identifying gaps for their development, what approach have you used before that has worked effectively?
I think I missed something, but I can read it. When assessing leaders on their competencies and identifying gaps for their development, what approach have you used before that has worked? Okay, when you look at assessing leaders on their competencies and identifying gaps for their development. Okay, I think I get what you're looking at. So you're looking at if you have leaders and you would want them to identify the gaps that they have. Again, I think, yes, again, that's a broad perspective, because are you looking at the technical perspective? Are you looking at other behavioral competencies? Of course, when it comes to technical aspects, that's it's a bit straightforward, because you're looking at the KPIs you give them in January. Are they achieving? That's pretty straightforward. When you're looking at behavioral competencies, then you're looking at things like probably their personality. How does that affect how they deal with people, their communication? How does that affect how they deal with people? So you're going to look at it from different angles. Then again, you could always work with a consultant on this or a coach on this, so that you're able to identify the specific behavioral competencies. Again, every role requires different competencies. So for example, you're looking at somebody who's probably a chief finance officer. They might not need to do a lot of talking. So even if you did a personality for them and realize they are pure introverts and they communicate well in writing, they're fine. They can deal with that. You have somebody else who is in sales and have to do a bit of relationship, and you look at their behavioral competency and they're probably not communicating, not outgoing, not people friendly, then you need to train them or coach them towards that direction. So first, it is very role specific. Do not put people in a blanket. It's very role specific. So look at the person's role and what behavioral competencies come with that. Then look for a test that addresses that specific thing, whether it's from a personality perspective or from a communication or any other perspective that you're looking at. Then ask yourself after that, is it that you need to coach them or train them to have that skill, or is it that you need to transfer them even to a totally different role that they can comfortably fit? It's not just a matter of you don't fit, go home. It could be that you need to shift them to a role that they suit better, or it could be they just didn't know they need to exercise that behavioral competence. They probably have it. They just didn't know they need to exercise it more. So you can train them and coach them towards that direction. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Rosemary. I think we come to the end of our webinar today on demystifying leadership. That was very insightful of you, very informative. I believe we leave here better leaders than we even came. You are able to reach Rosemary. Like if you, in case you need to contact her, kindly reach out to us. We'll share her contact with you. Also, if you want to talk to us about this topic or any other topic, feel free to drop us an email at info@acurex.co.ke, or you can give us a call or WhatsApp us on the numbers on your screen right now. Follow us on social media just to see what we are doing in the space of webinars or what our company does in more details. Coming next week, we have another webinar Wednesday at 11 a.m. Where we'll be talking about mentorship, mentorship for impactful learning. That is very closely related to what we've done today, but this one is just becoming now the more active leader through mentoring others. So for Rosemary, I'll just read a few comments that came through our chat box. From Faith, thank you. Great insights there. From Rosemary, thank you for the feedback, much appreciated. From John, thank you, Rosemary and Purity. Without much further ado, I think we'll close this webinar session there. Hope to see you all in the coming webinars, which is next week and the following weeks. So continue keeping safe, keeping distance, wearing your mask. What else do we do? Washing our hands.
Wash hands.
Yes, washing our hands. And other than that, God bless you. Hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you.
Thank you.